Hello and welcome back to my channel, Sol's World. I'm Sully, and this week I wanted to talk about planning for 2024 and closing out 2023 and what I did completely differently this year, as I normally do like a really big vision board that like you print stuff off, you stick it on, the whole thing. I normally do that, but if you're new here, I moved from Canada about a month ago, and now that I'm in Portugal, I don't have a really big board. It doesn't really make sense to be hauling that around with me, so we definitely went digital this year. And I did want to have a physical aspect, so I will be sharing like how I kept a physical aspect of having a vision board. Hi Max. And I'm just very excited because when I first started trying to figure out how I wanted to do this year, I really wasn't sure how to go about doing it because I knew it was going to be different. I kind of didn't even have a choice, which is helpful. And sometimes when you just have to do something new, it's a must, not a, oh, it would be nice if, or I could do that, maybe if kind of thing. So I'm really excited to share what I did this year and what I did differently, and the thing that I was afraid to do that I did that I really think is probably what was the most helpful, and I think everyone could utilize wrapping up the end of the year. But yeah, I have some tips and ideas on how you can really close out the end of 2023 in a way that's great for you, and then really set yourself up for 2024 to not be so full of like pressure and hustle, but more allowing your imagination and creativity to really take life. Really let yourself live out things that you've always wanted to, even if it's just in your mind. So what I mean by that is sometimes I think we're just really afraid to dream and really afraid to imagine something different because we want to confirm our identity, we want to confirm like what we already have. But what I really liked about a lot of the exercises I did this year to close out the year and prepare for 2024 is that they led me to imagine and be creative, and they also showed me that it's okay to let go of things. It's okay to let go of the known, and it's very okay to stray from the known. And I definitely felt like that was a theme for me anyway, was straying from the known and kind of going towards the fear. And that was evidenced by so many things. Like I felt like there were so many signs as far as like some of my favorite coaches just kept saying that, but also I listened to someone who's not a coach. He's more so like he's definitely spiritual, but he's like a comedian. His name is Sebastian Scales, and he had one podcast episode recently where he was talking about going into the fear, and it was perfect. Like you know when you have that feeling, it's like, I am supposed to be hearing this, I'm supposed to be seeing this. It was just one of those synchronicities that made me realize that I think that's going to be a large theme for me personally, is stepping into the fear and seeing what's on the other side of it. Same with, I've been reading Women Who Run with Wolves. That has also been eye-opening in terms of really stepping into curiosity, and I think, as she puts it in the book, stepping into the woods. So I am definitely going to share with you guys all of the things that I learned about recreating what I would call my like vision board process, and sharing the like little things that I did, but also the things that I think will make the biggest difference. It's so rainy today too, which I love. I love the rain, but I think this is so funny because there's none of them right now, but like the cats just, we have also, if you're new here, there are 4 cats, and they just like walk across this terrace over and over again, and it's the cutest thing. So you'll probably see them in the video. You might even see me get distracted by them, so there's that. But it is a rainy day here, and I think it's kind of one of those moods that's like perfect for staying in, reading, and recording a video. So let's get into it. Okay, so I love journaling. I love writing. I know that's not for everyone, so I promise you that's not the entirety of what I did. I'm just someone who loves those things. So if you love those things too, that's perfect. I would recommend grabbing a journal or a piece of paper for this, but what I normally do, and I think this was the only thing I kept the same, and I slightly changed it. So I normally break down what I want to envision for the new year in different parts, and I'm already getting ahead of myself. what I started with was actually something that I saw Jill's. I'll tag her in the comment section because I can't remember what her YouTube handle is. But she basically was saying like, you should be doing a life audit. And I was like, of course I should be doing that, because I even have like a different coach that talks about like reviewing your work too. And why would I not do that at the end of the year? Like, I've literally never done that at the end of the year. So simple thing, they all had their different ways of doing it. I like to keep it really simple. So I did what worked, what didn't work, and what do I want to do differently? And the what do I want to do differently kind of carries you into the actual preparing for 2024. So obviously I wrote a lot about what worked and what didn't work. And it's just really insightful to get all the thoughts in your head on the piece of paper and see it in a way that's not judgmental. Like, I think that's the key thing, is writing it in a way that's factual and not with like a bunch of descriptive words. So not writing like, I did horrible this year. So just keeping it really factual. I think that it's easy for us to go into that and be kind of like, I am so lazy, or just kind of saying it didn't work in a way that's really hurtful to ourselves, when really, if you're more factual about it, you can get kind of a more clear mental picture about what you actually want to do, instead of making it about you being a bad person for not doing something the way you thought it would go, or doing more of what you wanted to. Just being more clear and factual. So like, let's say you wanted to gain, I don't actually know, if I'm being honest, this is just an example, but you wanted to gain 15 pounds of muscle and you only gained like 5. That's all you're going to write. You're not going to write like, you're so lazy and you didn't gain all 15. You're just going to write what actually happened and what didn't work, and then what did work. So I think this is important, because I think it can be easy to get really caught up in like reviewing your end of year and to use it to beat yourself up. And in all reality, like, it's just supposed to be a reflection. So if you can keep it super factual, it's very helpful. And how you know it's factual is everyone would agree with you that that is what happened. It's a fact. Another way you know it's not is if you're using descriptive words. Usually people can't all agree on descriptive words, so those are really good signs. So that's kind of like the first thing you'll do is, if you're following this process, is basically you are just going to take a journal and write out all of that. Just get it out of your system. And if writing it in a descriptive way maybe helps you release it better, that's fine too. I'm just saying, don't use this to beat yourself up. If you're going to use it to release that energy, that's great too. But definitely don't beat yourself up with it. It's the end of the year and you made it through a whole year. That is something in and of itself to be proud of. So keep that in mind while you're doing all of this, and go into this with intentions that are actually going to serve you and not like ruin your day. It is a beautiful day. The sun is shining, it's raining simultaneously. So once you do like what worked, what didn't work, and what you want to do differently, and this applies if you had goals or not. Like, you probably still wanted things, or there were times where you thought that you wanted something to be different than it was. Just utilize that and go with what you have for your information to close out your year, and just to get a really good mental picture of what actually happened, so that you can have a firm starting place instead of just guessing as you go into 2024. As for 2024, as I mentioned, I tend to split things into categories, which is the only thing that I really kept going forward into this year. And the categories are like pretty simple and straightforward. And I'm going to tell you them in a way that's just like the normal name, but I did kind of change them when I made my vision board, just so that they felt like more powerful words, something that I could connect to on a deeper level, instead of just like typical stuff. So you can kind of make it your own. But the basic categories that I had for setting goals for 2024 was health and well-being, financial, career, education, recreation, relationships, contribution. So for me, this just helps keep it really clear and straightforward. But on Pinterest, I actually named like education, for example, expansion. I just connect with that more than I do with simply calling it education. I think my mind sees that word differently, obviously, than it does see expansion. So you can play around with this and make these categories mean what you want them to mean. But for me, each of these categories, health, financial, career, education, recreation, relationships, and contribution, each I just basically brain dumped and like wrote out everything that I want for those things. And no, my writing is not nice, so you cannot see it. That's not something that I intend to improve, probably ever. I like writing fast and it's messy. So I basically just wrote out all the things that I would like to see happen in 2024 in each of these categories. Pretty simple, but I'd like to call this kind of like a rough draft, if you will. So I'm calling it a rough draft because basically what's going to happen, and this was the biggest thing I did differently, and it was probably the hardest, is I actually confided in my family. I definitely was feeling a little bit lost and unsure about what I wanted to do, and I think this was the biggest thing, the biggest like difference maker in this process, that I wasn't seeing anywhere that I could tell that I was just looking for an answer. And I think that's why I was turning to YouTube videos to figure out like, what should I do to like prepare for 2024? How should I close out this year? I don't think I could recommend this enough, but if you have a trusted friend circle or family member or family members or a therapist or a coach, if I'm being honest, I do think friends or family in this situation, I've had coaches. I haven't gone to therapy, but in this particular situation, I think friends and family would be more beneficial because they're gonna know you if you trust them. Like, these are the most trusted people in your life. I think it's more beneficial because they're gonna be honest with you, but there for you at the same time. Whereas I find coaching sometimes, like they want you to come to that conclusion, which is great, but I almost felt like it was such a relief to tell people that aren't necessarily involved in many of these goals outside of relationships what was going on in my mind and have their perspective. Just an open conversation to kind of get a better idea of the direction you actually want to go in, because they can see things sometimes about you that you're not seeing about yourself. Things that a coach and a therapist are not going to see in everyday life that a friend or family member might. And if you trust them, I think having this step of just like kind of a second check is really nice. But I'm not gonna lie, I was scared to do this. I definitely felt like shame and fear, but that's kind of where that whole like step into the fear theme came in for me. It's like, you can do this. These people love you, you trust them, you love them. It's going to be okay, whatever happens. And honestly, telling them what was on my mind and in my heart, even though I was like kind of unsure, was probably one of the most helpful things I've ever done for myself, because I was able to just see things differently and not repeat goals that I've had for years and I am not sure that I want anymore. It really allowed me to be in a space where I could hold space for something more than what I was willing to give myself, because they were willing to hold that space, that I could be more. And sometimes a coach is perfect for that too. It just depends. All I'm really saying is that if you have friends or family that you can confide in about like the vision you have for yourself, and they're people that think big and they want the most for you, I think this could be the most life-changing year for you if you just take your like rough draft of what you think you want to do and share it with those people and see what they say, and see if they are offering you any ideas that they think would be like perfect for you, or they bring up like, oh hey, like what about this, you've mentioned this before, kind of thing. Like, who knows where your conversation will go. And not only will you have a new perspective on some of your goals and things you want to do in your life and next year, but you're going to deepen those relationships. And I am just very grateful that my family is here So I would highly recommend this. I've never done this before. I'm usually fairly closed off when I do this. I make it a very individual thing that I must do alone and figure out on my own. And I'm just very happy I didn't do that this year. I opened up and shared ideas and inspirations and hopes and dreams with other people, and it was invaluable. So your first step is just to really get an idea of where you're starting at. So basically asking yourself, like, what's working, what's not working, what do I want to do differently, getting an idea of what happened for you in 2023 so you have that starting place. The second step would be to write basically a first draft in specific areas that you want to see changes in, things that you want to see come true for you in specific areas of your life. And I mentioned for me that is health, education, financial, career, relationships, recreation, so fun, and contribution. And then your next step, because you've done that first draft now, is to confide in someone you trust and love, or someone like a coach or a therapist, and see how much higher and bigger they can take your dreaming and see how much they can pull you out of your comfort zone. Like I said though, make sure you're doing it with people that you love and trust, and not necessarily just with anyone. So if you don't have friends or family members that can hold that kind of space for you, definitely I recommend a coach or a therapist. Next, you are basically going to do your final draft of your goals, which is basically going to look like actually writing out, you can put as many as you want really, but you're basically going to write out exactly what you want. Once you've kind of had those couple of checks in place, you're going to write out exactly what you want to see happen in 2024. And I personally think this is super fun because you get to be your most creative and see what you really want and what comes out on top of all the things that you maybe listed. What is going to matter to you most, and just notice what you're really connecting with and you either are like really drawn to, or you're noticing like you have a lot of fear around accomplishing or having that thing, and really questioning why that is. For me, I noticed, like I said, that's a theme. I do want to embrace the things that I think I may be hiding from and really go into the woods. As I mentioned before, that Clarissa states in her book, Women Who Run with Wolves. Once you have this written out, and I would recommend writing it out because honestly, this can kind of become, it's hard to keep it straight in your mind when you have all these things that you're thinking about doing. So writing it down can give you a really clear mental picture. So once you have that, I think this next part is probably the most fun. So it would be creating your vision board. Now you can do what I used to do when I lived in Canada, which was I had like a big pushpin board, or what are they called? A big board where I would like tack on images of what matched like what I wrote out for each category. When I did the Pinterest boards, like I said, I didn't necessarily stick with like those typical words that I used before. So instead of education, for example, I used expansion. That just resonates with me more. And so you're going to have as many boards as you want. I think I ended up having 8, because what I did with relationships is I did separate out kind of like my relationship with myself versus my relationship with my family and friends. Like it's just a little bit different. There are different things that I want to see happen in my life in 2024 that don't necessarily have anything to do with my family and friends and just myself. You might have multiple boards and you might name them different things that actually resonate with you. So go ahead and do that. But basically, you are just going to be looking for, you already wrote out everything that you want. So you're basically just going to be typing into Pinterest or on Google and then pinning it on your boards what you want to see happen in 2024, which is fun. I think it really brings it to life to see like a visual aspect, and it helps anchor it too. What I really like about it this year is that I will have it on my phone, and I'm also going to have it on my laptop, so I can kind of take my boards with me wherever I want to go. And I'm going to show you kind of what I did with the boards. You can put like the widgets and have one on my phone and then like 8 on the background of my laptop, where this might be an Apple thing, so I'm sorry if it's an Apple thing only. Sorry, PC users and Android users. But basically, I took the widget and I made it a Pinterest widget, and then I chose the board that I wanted it to be, and that board basically just shows up, and every hour the picture changes on its own. So it's just something that you can glimpse at throughout your day. It's always changing, always updating, and it's just really nice to have that visual anchor about these things that you want to have become your life. You want them to be musts instead of something that you're just dreaming about. It's nice to make them feel more real because you're physically looking at it and engaging with it on a day-to-day basis, instead of just kind of occasionally thinking about how nice it would be to do, have, or accomplish any of those things that you want. You create the vision board, and once you have that, you can do what I did, where you either are obviously looking on the Pinterest app or creating a widget that lets you see and utilize it daily. One thing I noticed that a lot of people mention is obviously writing out your goals. Like, you should be writing them out and like tracking them, etc., etc. I've done that. It works. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you're just not aligned with it. And I think what I did differently, I'm hoping will be very helpful in relieving maybe some of the stress aspect of having to get a goal done and trying to force something that maybe isn't always there. I feel like this will help me and you know if you're actually aligned with that thing and checking in better about whether or not you're aligned. So I ended up writing out my goals, like the really big ones, as affirmations, and I put it at the front of my journal. I figured journaling is one of my daily self-care goals that I want to have this year. It's just something I do in general, but on days when I don't know what to journal, I can just write out my affirmations of what I want for the year. So these are the very specific things that I wanted to connect with, and it's something where I can write and say them and really notice how those things feel in my body when I am writing or saying them, and just see what's going on and really reflect and check in throughout the year in that way, instead of trying to make it about something that I'm either not living up to it, or I'm not doing good enough, or I could be doing better. It's just about connecting with my vision for 2024 and really connecting with stepping into all of these things that I've told myself I can't have or can't do or can't be, and living into them this way. So that is basically the entire process, is basically doing a review of 2023, having a rough draft of what I thought were my goals and aspirations and vision for 2024, confiding in friends and family to really get a fuller, bigger picture and see what they see in me and of me in the future, and then doing a final draft of my goals, creating a vision board through Pinterest, and then writing out affirmations that I can use daily to stay connected to that vision. And then finally, I think for me anyway, the biggest thing that I mentioned already is there just seems to be a very big theme of really stepping into what the unknown is and straying from the known, and being willing to put myself in a position where it's okay to feel fear just because you've never experienced it and your mind doesn't know necessarily what's going to happen. It's going to be safe. And I don't mean I'm putting myself in danger. I just mean it's okay to do things that you've never done before. Things that you never even imagined you could do before. Something that I wrote was that I want to do solo travel and experience what it's like to be in this world and connect to all of it, but also not have necessarily other people there for that. And solo travel comes with obviously real risk. There is something about that is there's a fear there for me. It's so unknown, it's so foreign. I have traveled, but never alone. So it's things like that, and things that you almost won't even let yourself mentally envision for yourself, the places that you're not allowing yourself to go. that's where I went, and that's where I'm noticing I need to go. It's now like a must in my life where I need to go to these places. I need to do these things for myself, because you get to live this life however you want. And if you have these opportunities, it just seems, I don't have the right words, but for lack of better phrasing, unfortunate to not do it when the only reason not to do it is fear. So I honestly think my biggest advice with this is to experience everything that you have the capacity to, and to know that you can feel fear, and when you feel the fear, you get to feel life. And it is pretty spectacular to be able to experience and feel life. Yes, I am scared, but I'm also very excited for this new year with so many complete, beautiful changes that are going to take place. And I'm so excited to document all the things that I do actually make come true. And I can't wait to share them with you guys. I'll talk to you next week.